40 years ago, a collection of hardcore racers converged on the prairie village of Great Bend, Kansas, to take part in NHRA's first national drag racing event. Hot rod heroes from both coasts and Canada, and all points in between, dueled for the title of Top Eliminator in machines that were marvels of ingenuity, inspiration, and innocence. But in the 10 seconds or so that it took to crown that first ever champion amid the cornfield, a competition legacy was launched. 4 decades later, that golden era has spawned a sport that preaches performance 20 times a year to the slack-jawed amazement of millions of the faithful. Quarter miles of asphalt are covered in thunderous bursts by machines that operate on space-age parts and astronomical budgets. Each October, these high-velocity vagabonds return to their Midwestern roots to once again battle for the bragging rights as the hottest hot rod in the Heartland here at the Sears Craftsman Nationals. TNN Motorsports proudly presents live final round coverage of the NHRA Sears Craftsman Nationals. The first thing you notice about folks in Kansas is they're friendly, really friendly. They're also very resilient. Maybe that's because they're used to extreme changes in weather, like 3 seasons in 3 days. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. We've had hot, we've had cold. We've had sun, we've had rain, we've had wind. Right now, we have absolutely perfect conditions for NHRA Championship drag racing, and what we've seen over the last 3 days is just about perfect. I bet you'd like to know who the top fuel finalists are, huh? Well, it's a David versus Goliath affair. Drum roll, please. The part of Goliath will be played by Scott Coletta, winner of 4 races this year, the defending Winston champion, and as of last evening, the quickest driver in the history of quarter-mile racing at 4.660 seconds. The role of David goes to Mike Dunn. He's won 3 races this year in Dale Gwynn's La Victoria Salsa car, but here they qualified only 7th, and they have broken virtually everything you can break on a car except for Mike Dunn's spirits. Now, these folks already know who the funny car finalists are, don't you, gang? Here's Dave McCullum to tell all of you at home. Mac?
Steve, I'm going to wait just a second before I reveal our 2 giants of funny car racing. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the kind of performance today has yielded. Side-by-side 507s, multi-300-mile-an-hour runs, topped by a 306-mile-an-hour blast. But you would not have picked either one of our finalists at the start of this day. First, Cruz Pedregon. He ran 306 miles an hour today. He qualified in the number 8 spot. His opponent is truly a giant of the sport. He holds the mile-an-hour record at over 306 miles an hour. Hoffman in his Pontiac qualified in the number 11 spot. So as you can see, they may be giants, but they certainly weren't at the top of the list when this day started. Pro Stocks had its share of excitement as well. For that story, here's Bob Fry.
All right, guys, you got me. I'll go with this David Goliath thing just a little bit longer. If you got Goliath in the funny car, I have David in the Pro Stock category. A lot of folks probably thought it would be Warren Johnson and Kurt Johnson, or a combination of the 2 in the championship round here at Heartland Park. But nuh-uh, neither one of those drivers will be around. Instead, it's going to be Jerry Ekman in the Pennzoil Pontiac, looking for his first win in, well, how long? I asked him when his last win was. He said about 30 minutes ago. It was actually 3.5 years ago when the Pennzoil Pontiac last won. He will take on Steve Schmidt. Schmidt qualified in the 2-hole, has run extremely well during the course of the weekend. He has not been off of the 7-0s all day long. So you got a couple of Goliaths. I got a couple of Davids. The final in Pro Stock is going to be great. And right now, let's go to our one and only Steven.
I promise you this is the last time I'll use this word, but we have a Goliath of a purse. $1,200,000 plus in total posted awards. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to start bringing you up to date on the Sears Craftsman Nationals when we come back live on TNN from Topeka, Kansas.
TNN's exclusive live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals is brought to you by Mopar, Chrysler Corporation Parts, and the Chrysler Plymouth Dodge Truck, Jeep, and Eagle dealers who sell and install them. And by Mobile Motor Oil. At Mobile, we've been changing oil for over 125 years. What a day in the heartland of America. You come back and be with us. Welcome back to the Sears Craftsman Nationals here at Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas. What a gorgeous day it is for the crowd on hand and for you folks at home, because you're going to see some tremendous action. You know, there has been one continuous thread that has run through pro stock racing this entire season, and it has not necessarily been performance. It has been the battle on the starting line.
And in my mind, I just count to 5, 4, 5, and if I see it, he's still not trying to move, shame on him.
If I think the guy's going to screw me around, I'm going to make him wait on purpose for no other reason.
All of it is just intellectual intercourse.
I have no idea what I'm liable to do, so whatever comes out, comes out.
I'm not going to let it happen to me twice. If we go up there, we pull a little psychology, and we go out there and race.
I like the game.
A lot of times it'll work.
You just got to do what you think is right.
You got to do what you got to do to win.
All they do is just trip themselves up.
One of you's going to leave first, one of you ain't. You just hope it's you.
I think you got to have a thick skin to be a modern-day pro stock driver. We've told you Jerry Ekman is in the final. Let's see how he got there. In round number 1, it was Morgan up against Larry Morgan, rather, against the Pennzoil Pontiac. Morgan is always looking for the whole shot, but this time it was the tree that knocked him down. He red-lighted away a 7:15. Ekman just coasted down the racetrack. In round number 2 was Las Vegas George Marnell, who qualified at a brilliant 7:09 up against Jerry Ekman's Pennzoil Pontiac. Ekman was about 200 tardy off the mark, but had some huge horsepower at the other end, as you'll see. Ekman's car just dancing the front wheels, hooked to this racetrack, and he won it at 7:07 to a very game 7:10. I think George Marnell was a little bit in shock. Jerry Ekman has not been having that great a year. In fact, Jerry Ekman joins me right now. Tell me about the semifinal round with Kurt Johnson.
Well, that was not exactly what someone wants to do, is take out the #1 qualifier, but I had a lot of faith in my crew, and we were running good in that right lane, and we had one lane choice, and we stuck with that right lane, and I was fortunate enough to get out on the mark just a tad enough ahead of him and got the win.
And folks, there was identical 7:09 elapsed times between this man and Kurt Johnson. He did indeed take out the #1 qualifier. What about Steve Schmidt? Here's Bob Fry.
Now, the other side of the ladder saw Steve Schmidt start out of that #2 qualifying position. He had a very good first-round encounter with Bob Glidden, and he threw down a number that was really kind of indicative of what we're going to see the rest of the day. Now, watch this as Schmidt puts an 06 up on the board here and begins his march towards the championship round. Big win there for Steve. They always say that first round is so very, very important. Then he would go into that second round, and he would take on Mike Edwards. Now, Mike was flying those Steve Schmidt colors, and, hey, I got to be honest with you, I don't want you to think it was a tank job, but there were people tripping over scuba gear up there on the starting line. Now, Mike finally took off. Mathematically, it was a good run, in 07 to 09. But Steve Schmidt got the win and threw down another 7-0. Steve, as we get set now to go into that semifinal matchup with WJ, there wasn't anybody diving into that semi.
I don't think so. Warren and I have had our share of battles the last couple of years, and both the national events I've won, I had to beat Warren to do it, and I did it again today, so hopefully our luck will hold out.
We should tell you folks, in the interest of fair reporting, not only was that probably the most popular win of the day when Steve Schmidt took out Warren Johnson, but Steve Schmidt, the engine builder, had 8 cars running his motors in the 16-car field, and that's pretty darn impressive. But I'll tell you right now, the only car that Steve Schmidt's worried about in the field is that Jerry Ekman. Dave?
Bob, we've looked now at our 2 finalists, Steve Schmidt and Jerry Ekman, but there were a whole host of others that participated in the Sears Craftsman Nationals Pro Stock field. 16 cars started eliminations. Let's take a look. Here's where they stood after round number 2. Kurt Johnson and Danny Kaufman, Jerry Ekman. You saw the George Marnell battle with him. And the semifinals, you also saw how that happened. That moved Ekman into the final round with a great side-by-side race. take a look at the other side of the ladder. Maybe you can find your favorite there. Here's the way they advanced into round 2. Then they went to the semifinals. And the one thing I must mention about the semifinal race between Steve Schmidt and Warren Johnson, they ended up with a 7:06 elapsed time each. Here is the race between Warren Johnson and Jim Yates. WJ's number 1 in the points, Yates number 2, and Yates red-lighted away his chance for a victory in round number 2. That allowed Warren Johnson to advance on into the semifinal round. So that kind of sets it up for pro stock competition. Those guys are getting their cars ready, and we'll be to the final round live here on TNN in just a few moments. We've got a lot more action as well with Funny Car. We'll take a look at that in just a few moments as well. Remember, it is Al Hoffman and Cruz Pedregon that'll be dueling it out there. You stick around. TNN's exclusive live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals is brought to you by the more than 1,000 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts.
Hi, everybody. We're back with live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals. You know, if you compare this asphalt at Heartland Park, Topeka, using the national record as a scale, it stacks up really well. Well, it should. John Force set the record here a year ago at 4.93 seconds, and it stands today. And, you know, I think back over the 7-year history of this racetrack, it always seems to kind of prefer funny cars, caters a bit to the funny cars. Let's have a look back at some history made right here. Heartland Park has been the site of breakthrough performances that have sparked what could be called a funny car renaissance. It was in '93 when Jim Epler literally snatched the record book off John Force's shelf. It became the first funny car to break that triple century mark, 300.4 miles per hour. Force went on to set a national record in 1994 with this blistering final round blast of 303.95 miles per hour to cap off his 4th championship season. This year, Cruz Pedregon joined the ranks of high-speed funny car pilots with this 300-mile-per-hour shot at the Big Spud Shootout. The cruiser later posted a 304 on his way to winning the U.S. Nationals title. But the current funny car national speed record rests firmly in the grip of Al Hoffman, whose back-to-back 306-mile-an-hour runs at Englishtown also placed him into the rarefied circle of drivers who have moved their machines through the fabled 4-second barrier. The first into the fours was Chuck Etchels. The same day the 300-mile-an-hour mark was set in 1993. Etchels had made history with this run of 4.98 seconds right here in Topeka. That was another page of the history book John Force had all but pasted his picture in. He wasn't the first, but he'd darn sure be the quickest. Last year at this race, John Force inked a 4.93 into the Funny Car National Record book. What's next? Well, you never can tell. Here is the home of the barrier-breaking funny cars, Topeka. Okay, great piece. Let's check out how Cruz Pedregon got to the final round. In round number 1, he met up with Mark Oswald. No pushover. Oswald has won this race 3 times. But Pedregon in the Joe Gibbs-owned McDonald's Pontiac. Watch this one. Pedregon pounds out a 504. Listen to the speed. 306 miles an hour. Oswald had lots and lots of problems. All right, in round number 2, the cruiser on a roll up against Chuck Etchels, the #1 qualifier at 498.300. Etchels was away first by only 100, but Cruz immediately covered that up. 507 to a 511. And joining me is Cruz Pedregon. Tell the fans at home about the semifinal against John Force.
It was one of those dream races. We went in there in the semis there with both running 507 over 300, and that's what won it for us, a 507 to a 507. Very close race, door handle to door handle. It was great.
As you charged down the racetrack, could you see Force?
Hey, I could hear him, smell him, feel him. I heard it all because when you race Force, you're up against a tough car, and we were happy to get the win. I saw the little light come on at the end. I was happy.
They both ran 4.07 seconds. Pedregon at 300 miles an hour. Force at 302. The first time we've ever seen side-by-side 300s in funny car. Bob Fry?
The other semifinalist is Al Hoffman, and the Western Auto car, by his own admission, has been struggling since about the Brainerd race, and a lot of that has to do with those clutch parts that we talked about on the live show here on CNN this morning. Now, in the opening round, it was Al Hoffman starting off against Gary Clapshaw, and Al put down his best time of the weekend to date. He had only qualified at 5:20, and in beating Clapshaw, he would throw a 5:14 up. And watch this, almost a picture-perfect run. It's a great look from the in-car camera of Al Hoffman. And he advances into the semifinal round. In the second round, he would take on a guy that had to have him a little concerned. Jim Epler in the Rug Doctor had been running extremely well this weekend, qualified well up near the top half of the field. Again, almost picture perfect for Al. A 5:11, he needed it. Epler threw a 5:15 at him, and that moved Al Hoffman in the Western Auto Car into the semifinals. Al Hoffman's with me now, and Al, as we get a chance to look at this semifinal run, you had to be a little concerned about that Bazemore boy.
Oh, yeah. He's been running excellent this weekend. I mean, he went out there and right off the bat, #1 qualifier with a 5:10. Whit's been stepping up real good, and you can't take him lately.
And Whit Bazemore fouls out on the starting line. A stunning upset, maybe a little bit of case for the nerves for the kid who is having a great weekend. But that'll move Al Hoffman in the Western Auto Car into this championship round. You've had a pretty good year against Cruz.
Yeah, I think we'll do okay. We had a good run going then against Witt, but the car drove through the clutch, and that won't happen this time. It's going to be a serious race between Cruz and I.
Should be a good drag race, and finals and funny car coming up in just a bit. Dave?
And Bob, that final round matchup is between the only two cars that have ever run 306 miles an hour with a full-bodied race car. The Valvoline ladder shows us what your favorites may or may not have done this day. Here's round number 2 filled in. You saw the Etchells-Pedregon race. It was Tony Pedregon up against John Force on the other side of that matchup. So Cruz and Force met up in that run that matched identical 5:07s at over 300 and put Cruz into the finals. Here's the other side of the ladder. Bazemore ended up in the number 2 qualifying spot. His 5:10 held up for that time. In round number 1, he was against the Smokin' Joe's car of Gordy Bonin. And you talk about a rarefied atmosphere to run in. Well, he just joined a very elite group. He, being Whit Bazemore at the wheel of the Mobil 1 car, moved into the 300-mile-an-hour mark at 301. Coming back in the other races, you saw Bazemore and Al Hoffman battle it out in the semifinals. So it has been an interesting field in funny car competition, leading to what I described earlier as the battle of giants of funny car. Though they may not have qualified that well, they're here to match up for the big bucks at the Sears Craftsman Nationals. Well, we've got Top Fuel to talk about coming up in just a few moments. We want you to stick around live here on TNN. TNN's exclusive live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals is brought to you by Pep Boys Automotive Supercenter.
We are back live to Sears Craftsman Nationals, and I'm going to tell you how points leader Scott Coletta got to the final round. In race number 1, Scott fortunately drew his father, Connie. Earlier in the season, Connie had tried to rip his throat out. This late in the tight point chase, no chance. So it wasn't a surprise when Connie's engine was shut off before his stage. Huge break as Coletta Sr. was pushed away. Coletta Jr. staged, and as soon as he tickled the throttle pedal, the throttle linkage fell off. It didn't break, it just fell off. Had he been racing somebody else, he would have been whipped. In round number 2, it was Scott Coletta against Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein had been the quickest car in round number 1 at 476. And guess what? Kenny ran a 476 again, but so did Scott Coletta. And on a teeny-weeny hole shot, Coletta went to the final 4. And joining me right now is Scott Coletta. Tell me about the race against Eddie Hill. He was tough today.
Yeah, that's for sure. You know, those guys have been struggling for a while, and they're finally starting to get a handle on it, so you can never take, you know, the 93 champ lightly. We just wanted to go up there and be consistent, and hopefully, you know, we take it.
And what he's taking is a lot of points towards a $200,000 Winston Champions bonus. Bob Fry, tell me about the other finalists.
Now, the other finalists, Mike Dunn, Darrell Gwynn, Jerry Gwynn, Frank Bradley, the La Victoria Salsa team. And let's see, earlier this morning we said you don't have to run fast, but you do have to run often. And watch this in the opening round as they come up, and they had a lot of problems, but not nearly as much as the Smokin' Joe's car. In fact, everybody was smoking. The win light finally comes on for Mike Dunn, 7:14, and Darrell figured he had the rest of the field right about where he wanted them. Things didn't get a whole lot better in that second round as they were to meet up with Larry Dixon, and they really got a gift. Now watch this. A red light start for Larry Dixon as Mike Dunn explodes the motor, broke just about everything that rolls in that puppy, and goes 6:25. The bright side of things, they knocked off almost a second from their opening round run. But then they started to get a bit serious. They got a lot of help between rounds. Going into the semifinal, came to the line, never even fired the car up, and made it down there at 492 to take out Pat Austin. Now, we're here in the La Victoria pit area right now, and they're really busy. Mike just finished working on the clutch on the race car, is in getting set to suit up and get set for the final round. So the La Victoria team, everything's in good position right now. Mike's getting suited up. They got parts that go up and down and around, and they're kind of excited about this. Dave?
And so are we, Bob, because in just a few moments right here live on TNN, you are going to see that Top Fuel final. But we started this day with 16 cars in Top Fuel Eliminator. We saw the Coletta matchup. Ron Capps was the guy that got beat by Kenny Bernstein. There were the pairings in round number 2. It was Tommy Johnson Jr. that fell to Eddie Hill. And Scott Coletta, as you saw, whipped up on Eddie to advance to the final round. He holds lane choice over his opponent. On the other side, you saw Larry Dixon. Well, he won his first round race against Mike Smith. Corey Mack and Pat Austin. Well, this was a race that was certainly integral into the Winston points chase. For Corey Mack, it was critical. He needed a win here if he hoped to keep pace and challenge at all Scott Coletta, but that potential victory went up in smoke as the Red Wing Shoes Dynamax Castrol Syntec car of Pat Austin went on to the semifinals, where he met Blaine Johnson, and once again, maybe luck if you call it that, prevailed, because he was able to get by to race Mike Dunn in the semis, and it was Dunn who beat Pat Austin to earn his way into the final round. Well, down in the pit area, Bob Fry has a very special offer from Diamond P Sports just for you.
Dave, it's hard to believe the season's almost over. And, folks, if you're thinking about what to do during the offseason while you're missing these live telecasts on TNN, why not get the greatest tape library offer ever? And they walked away from the folks at Diamond P. Call the number on your screen right now and watch this helmet-hammering, bone-jarring motor mayhem. I don't write them, I just read them. Steve Evans does his usual spectacular job of telling you about some of this footage from around the world of motorsports, from stock cars, sprint cars, boats, on the land and on the water. The Walked Away series is the best from the great Diamond P library, and the Walked Away 4 is the latest in this tremendous series. So call the number right now. Here's the address where you can write. You can call up and order it too, and then during the off-season, when there's no more live telecast on TNN, you can sit back and watch your own personal copy of And They Walked Away 4. Dave?
Bob, we're just about ready to go with the final round of competition in Top Alcohol Dragster. We encourage you, stay with us. We've got great racing to come from Topeka. Welcome back to Heartland Park, Topeka, in the 7th annual running of this Sears Craftsman Nationals, and we are ready for the final round of elimination. This is the Top Alcohol Dragster category, and I know of no category of competition that has captured the imagination of so many folks as has this one at this event. The bump spot was an incredible 586. We have already seen a 250-mile-an-hour run. Here is the first final round appearance for this season for Darrell Russell. He qualified in the number 5 spot. He hails out of Houston, Texas. His opponent is the Wildside car, the 250-mile-an-hour Charger of Chuck Baird. And Baird and Russell put on one of those incredible races. Identical elapsed times to the thousandth of a second. 5.711 for each driver. A slight advantage going to Chuck Baird at the starting line. That measures an 0.08 of a second margin of victory at the finish line. Chuck Baird, the 250-mile-an-hour runner, has won his title here at the Sears Craftsman Nationals. Let's go to Alcohol Funny Car. The excitement here just as strong. Bob Newberry in the Key Auto Parts car qualified in the number 3 spot. He had a 5.88 elapsed time to make that part of the field. His opponent is Pat Austin, who qualified number 1 with the Castrol Syntec Oldsmobile. As the burnouts continue back at the starting line, Bob Fry is there. Boy, this has been a lot of excitement in our alcohol categories, Bob.
It's been as good as you're going to get in this class. Chuck Baird setting the 250-mile-per-hour mark, getting the win. We should note, by the way, that he beat Bobby Taylor in his semifinal round, and that eliminated Taylor's chances for the Winston title. It now comes down to 2 in that category, and that'll be Jay Payne and Tom Conway. And the battle you're watching now in the alcohol funny car category is as good as it gets in this class, Dave.
Yes, it is. In the semifinals, Pat Austin ran a 5.90 to beat Danny Townsend. Vern Motes was the victim of Bob Newberry, who ripped off an absolutely incredible 5.80 second elapsed time. Spraying on some lubricant on the injectors because the alcohol used by these cars, the methanol, actually can kind of freeze up. It'll condense up there on that injector. It is so cold with all the air running through those huge superchargers. That's why they spray that lubricant to keep things from freezing up. Everything went Bob Newberry's way. He got the advantage at the starting line. He had the performance advantage as well. 5.87 his elapsed time for the win for the Keystone Pyroil Key Parts car. His speed 247 miles an hour. Bob Newberry beating Pat Austin. PNN's exclusive live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals is brought to you by Mopar, Chrysler Corporation Parts, and the Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, Truck, Jeep, and Eagle dealers who sell and install them. We'll be right back to Topeka. You stay with us. Welcome back to Topeka, Kansas, and we are ready for the professional finals. I want to introduce our special guest for Pro Stock Motorcycle. You recognize him for sure. This is Terry Vance of the fabled Vance and Hines team. Does this mean that we're going to see Terry back at the controls of a motorcycle?
Well, no, not me, Dave. But next year we are going to do a couple events with Byron's son, Matthew, and maybe start the Gators and then go from there, and we'll see what happens.
Well, we look forward to that, and right now we are looking forward to the action in the final round of Pro Stock Motorcycle. We have got John Myers, who has definitely been the class of the field. His opponent is Gary Tonglet. Maybe a bit of a surprise, Terry.
Absolutely, Dave. You know, Gary's been racing for 20 years, and this is his first final round appearance at an NHRA national event.
John Myers continues absolute domination of this category. 7:54 at 175. With David Schultz going out earlier, this is just about clinching for John Myers his Winston title. Watch this in replay. Did he do anything wrong?
No, he hasn't done anything wrong all day, Mac. John's been on the money all day. He's run a 58, a 53, a 53, and now a 54. I think he's totally dominated this class today, and there's a lot of long faces in the pits. But I'll tell you, when you watch this motorcycle in the middle of the track, it moves so hard as you see it does on Gary Tonglet there. It's working perfect. And I'll tell you, the Star Crew, George Bryce, they've been doing a great job.
Look at the Pro Stock cars, and there's Bob Fry.
Steve Schmidt sitting here. Steve, you took out WJ in that semifinal, but that's past history now, isn't it?
The only race I care about right now is the one coming up with Jerry Ekman. He's one tough customer.
Certainly is, and of course there are 8 of those Steve Schmidt motors in the finals in the field in Pro Stock, and one of them in the finals is Jerry Ekman in the Pontiac. That is not a Steve Schmidt motor. It's one of those great Bill Orndorff things, and under here somewhere is a guy that hasn't won in so long. Last time that you were in the finals, we only had radio.
No, I think it was cave dwellings and cave drawings. That's what it seems like to me, but we're ready to get a win today. Hopefully this will be our day.
Cave dwellings and hieroglyphics were somewhere on the wall. It says a great final in Pro Stock cars coming up. Jerry Ekman trying to win for the first time in 3 years against the giant killer himself, Steve Schmidt.
There is always something to do at an NHRA Winston drag racing event, and these fans out in the manufacturer's midway taking a look at the latest in performance parts and accessories for their car and truck. But out on the racetrack, we're getting ready for Pro Stock, and welcoming to our booth, I would like to say hi to Kurt Johnson, the driver of the Johnson family Oldsmobile.
Great to be here, Dave.
Well, you had a good race. Unfortunately, it didn't work out to your benefit.
Well, not too bad. You know, we're holding down that number 3 spot in points, and Dad locked up the World Championship today, so the Johnson family's having a good day.
Well, it is, and your Oldsmobiles are running very strong. You obviously have got a favorite if you go for the Oldsmobile side of things here in the final round with Steve Schmidt and Jerry Ekman, the Oldsmobile Pontiac struggle. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we have to cheer for the Oldsmobile right now, even though we're going to be driving Pontiac Firebirds next year. Jerry's been having real good lights today. He's had a 430 and a 440. Steve's got about 200 to 300 performance advantage right now, so Steve's behind Jerry in points. Jerry's trying to chase me. They're both trying to get at me, really, so I have to vote or cheer for Steve Schmidt today.
The one that's the furthest away, right?
You got it. You got it.
Well, did I hear you say you're going to be driving Pontiacs next year, huh?
Yep. Both Dad and I will both be in Pontiac Firebirds next year, so we're real excited about it.
Steve Schmidt, you got to have some respect for him. He's got lots of engines in this field, and here he is now in his final round appearance. Jerry Ekman had 100th of a second advantage, but he lost it when mechanical problems set in. Schmidt remains consistent. 2 706s, 2 707s throughout eliminations. That one, a 707 at 194 miles an hour. That's impressive indeed, the consistency this man's been able to generate.
Steve did a real good job there. He went in stage first. He was ready. Jerry took his time. He came in. Steve cut a good light, and he won the race.
You know, talking about the cutting of the light and staging, do you ever get into those battles?
We try not to, you know. Usually we have a better performing car, so you don't want to go up there and, you know, kind of screw yourself there.
Well, the Dynagear Oldsmobile of Steve Schmidt is the champion, and Steve is with him.
And I'm sure Steve Schmidt would find it hard to believe that Kurt Johnson was in the booth rooting for you, but he was, and a 707 has won it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. This Dynagear Oldsmobile obviously has ran tremendously all day. I want to thank all the guys back at the shop. I always forget to thank them, and they're really the most important part of this deal. They're the ones that work 70, 80 hours a week to make this deal happen.
Have a good time tonight, huh?
Tk you, partner.
Okay. Mac?
How about this Dynagear?
How about this as Steve Schmidt begins the celebration? Well, let's take a look at how the point standings are as Warren Johnson is all but mathematically clinched it. Don't kid yourself. He's got it won. Jim Yates second. Kurt Johnson remains third. Jerry Ekman in fourth. And Steve Schmidt, number 5, back at the starting line. There's more racing to come. Bob Fry's there.
And so's Bob Brandt. Bob, this car is really running well this weekend. Should be a fun final.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. The McDonald's guys doing a great job. You know, my team, what can I say, the best, you know.
Must be that helmet Cruz is wearing.
Yeah, it's been good luck, and we don't want to stop now.
He's got that Los Angeles Raiders helmet on. I don't know how the football team's doing, but the race car's not doing badly. Tom, you guys are smiling. You like your chances here in the finals?
We always like our chances. We've been struggling a little bit in performance, but we run pretty decent today. And McDonald's car over here, they run real good. But, boy, you can't ever count out this Western Auto car, you know?
Absolutely correct. This should be a fun final. 2 very quick, very fast, very strong, very confident teams. And that all adds up to what should be a tremendous funny car final. And it's coming up live here on TNN.
TNN's exclusive live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals is brought to you by Allied Signal and Fram. Pay me now or pay me later.
Here in the Heartland, corn isn't the only thing that gets roasted.
Well, we have a new guest in the booth, and he is the #1 qualifier. Unfortunately, not one of the finalists. But how about Chuck Etchels in your Kendall GT1 Dodge? Folks, he ran 300 miles an hour for the first time in his career.
Yeah, we're real happy with that, Mac. You know, getting over the 300-mile-an-hour barrier was an accomplishment. But, you know, we came here to win the race. We didn't do it. But we did run good, so we're happy for that.
Out on the racetrack, it is Cruz Pedregon and Al Hoffman, the 2 finalists in funny car competition. You ran another 498, just like you did back a couple of years ago to become the first. That was a great pass.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You know, it got to be later at night, and I think Tim took a shot at it.
Well, it worked for that time, but unfortunately, you had some problems a little bit later on in the eliminations, And now we come down to our finalists of Pedregon and Hoffman, the only two racers that have run 306 miles an hour in a full-bodied car. That's impressive performance, Chuck.
It sure is, Mac. 306 is awesome in a funny car. Matter of fact, there's our problem right there, you know, the hamburger stand. He did us in.
He has been superlative this race. So he did not qualify that well, only in the number 8 spot. It kind of shows you that you don't have to qualify number 1. Not putting a bad rap on you, but it's a lot more difficult at times to win from the number 1 spot.
Yeah, it sure can be. We had a real tough side of the ladder, and I was talking to Cruz this morning, as a matter of fact, and they've been working on their new clutch this program, and he felt real good going into the race against us, rightfully so. They've been fighting the clutch problems, and it looks like they've got a handle on it.
You're inside the car as the body comes down on Al Hoffman. That's his wife, Helen. His crew chief, Tom Anderson. They have done a remarkable job with this race car. They've had a lot of problems with this car and the 2 previous chassis of doing wheel stands, getting the balance set just right. If they have it right on, this car is exceptionally quick and exceptionally fast. Oh, you couldn't ask for better competition than that. Cruz Pedregon wins it 5:06 at 301 miles an hour. A 5:14 for Al Hoffman at 2:96. Are you surprised?
Well, I was hoping you'd ask me before the run, but I could have looked smart in this one. I would have picked Cruz. A lot of times when you come from the tough side of the ladder, Dave, it makes you a little sharper, I think, when you do get to the final. And Cruz had to chop through some pretty heavy wood today.
Well, take a look at this run in replay. Pedregon did it just about right. May have gotten a little bit loose out there in the middle, but was able to keep it under control.
Yeah, Cruz did a great job. Got a little bit loose down there, maybe around half track or so.
All right, down as Cruz Pedregon takes off his McDonald's Raiders helmet. Let's join Steve Evans.
And Cruz Pedregon won this race much like the Oakland Raiders of old won Super Bowls. He just tore them apart, limb by limb by limb. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Boy, these guys are taking shots at me on that tree deep staging and stuff, but well, I have to tell them a lot of people have done that to me, but it ain't going to work, guys. But I just want to thank McDonald's and everyone. Let me tell you something. This car came in here with a lot of expectations, and we didn't live up to them in qualifying. All of a sudden, race day, Bob Brandt, Larry Frazier, everybody, I want to thank Lee Beard again for he's staying involved with us here. McDonald's, Interstate, everybody, EDS, thanks.
You weren't bad yourself, my young friend. Dave McClellan?
Well, the emotion may have caught up with him just a little bit when he realized the magnitude of what he had done. He just laid away Al Hoffman, remained 3rd in the points chase. John Force just about got it clinched over Hoffman. Etchells, our special guest, the Chucker, in 4th, and Dean Scusa remains number 5. Here again is Bob.
And here again is that cliche as we talked to Frank Bradley. Frank, you don't have to run fast as long as you run often.
Yeah, I tell you, we've been awful lucky this weekend. It's, well, maybe it's luck, maybe it's not. We had some bad luck, some good luck, but a couple months ago we run 70s here, and now we're running 80s and blowing crankshafts out of motors, so we're back rolling the dice again here. We think we got the problem fixed, so we'll find out in a few minutes, won't we?
Timing is everything. They got a 492 in that semifinal round, and all they got to do to fill out this David versus Goliath role is take out what is probably the hottest car on the planet now, Dick.
Well, you know, I'm just glad to be here in the final. If we can win the thing, that'll just put the icing on the cake. It's been a long season, you know, and there's a lot of great teams out there, and unfortunately, we run some runs this weekend that was just fantastic.
Yes, they did, and they got a chance still to run that world record and pick up $50,000. It could happen live right here on TNN. It's Mike Dunn and Scott Collette. It's coming up next.
Want a wrench on a top fuel dragster? Well, bring your Craftsman tools and plenty of energy.
Well, all that work is completed now, and out on the racetrack, our finalist in Top Fuel Eliminator in the near lane is the favorite, Scott Coletta. I personally have a favorite. It is Shelly Anderson, driver of the Western Auto Haviland Top Fuel car. She is joining us here in the booth. This is going to be an interesting race with Mike Dunn in definitely an underdog role.
Yeah, but luck wins races. Better to be lucky than good. Scott's definitely got the performance advantage. Him and Dixon had an outstanding weekend with runs, and Mike's just been lucky.
4:66. Now, he has not yet backed it up for a national record. He's got to run better than or as good as a 4.706 on this run if he wants to set the record at a 4:66. That'd earn him 20 more points.
And 50,000, but I went over. They don't want to set the national world record. They want to back it up, back up the run they ran earlier, maybe a 4:76, and not smoke the tires, LaHaye said.
So they're looking for the event win rather than the glory of the record. Let's watch. Well, just like Dick LaHaye said, mid-470s. How about a 475 at 295 miles an hour? This guy's a genius, sweetheart.
He's unbelievable. Him, Wes Cerny, there's a couple of really ones that are right on their game, and he's one of them.
Did you see anything that Scott Coletta did wrong on this run?
I haven't seen Scott Coletta do anything wrong this year. He's going to be the world champion. This gives him 7 rounds ahead of the next guy. It's pretty much locked up.
Oh, it is. It is mathematically possible, maybe, but he'd not have to show up for 2 races and the other guy win, Corey Mack, win them all. That's Dick LaHaye receiving the accolades of his crew as a justly deserved win. Let's go down to Steve.
I think we can tell the folks up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at RJR, they can get a head start on writing the checks. A 475, exactly what you wanted.
Awesome. I tell you what, Dicko is incredible. I can't say enough about him. The guys, Dad, American International, Casey Powell Sequent, Suburban, my little boy, Corey. Yes.
It's a shame you didn't get the record. That's the only thing you left on the table.
Yeah, well, you know, there's still a couple races left, and it looks like Dick's on to something, so we'll try again.
Shake my hand. The Sears Craftsman Nationals Top Fuel Champion, Dave McClellan.
What a show it is, and I must tell you, it is an emotional sport indeed. You heard it come into Scott Coletta's voice as he was saying thank you. There's the lead he has over Corey McLenathan. Mike Dunn is solidly in third ahead of Larry Dixon. Blaine Johnson rounds out the top 5 in the Winston Top Fuel point standings after 17 of 19 races in this 95 season. Only 2 to go. Our Mopar high performer, how about this? His 5th national event win this season. The points leader, he's got the quickest elapsed time in history at 4.660. Who else could it be but our champion here at Heartland Park in the Sears Craftsman Nationals, Scott Coletta. What a show this has been, as Scott Coletta has been absolutely dominant. Let's go down to the starting line, and here's Bob.
Well, I just talked to Darrell Gwynn. You could hear the emotion from the winners, and Darrell was really a little bit upset. He said he had called Grandma down in Florida for some extra advice before the final round, and they were really kind of upset. They figured they could run down there and get the win. They, like LaHaye, were not looking to run any world record times, so they really figured they had a good opportunity. Tough break for Mike Dunn, but a big win for Scott Coletta. Mac?
All right, TNN's exclusive live coverage of the Sears Craftsman Nationals was brought to you by our friends at Mopar, Chrysler Corporation Parts, and the Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge Truck, Jeep, and Eagle dealers who sell and install them. By Valvoline. Valvoline, for people who know, they use Valvoline. And by Beechwood Aged Budweiser. It's always been true. This Bud's for you. Here are some of the moments of this, the Sears Craftsman Nationals at Heartland Park, Topeka. The Sears Craftsman Nationals has been a production of Diamond P Sports and the Nashville Network, leaders in coverage of live motorsports.